Excellent, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us, and also to everybody that's come along on a 5 o'clock on a Wednesday and on a night where the sun is shining. So we really do appreciate that. What we're going to do, we're just going to go and introduce the three hosts, including myself, and then just give a brief outline of the format of the session. So I'll start. My name's Sarah Whale, and I'm a long-time finance professional, and I've got quite a varied background, but mainly within operational finance roles, so financial controller, finance director within business. So that's my background. I'm a fellow of the ACCA, which is one of the largest global accounting body, and I'm also the founder of Profit Impact, and a B Corp B leader. Now, hopefully by the end of this session, you'll know what some of these things mean. We are popping into the chat Profit Impact's information brochure, so do feel free to download that, and you'll understand a bit more about what we're all about if you take a look at that. And so today, what we're going to talk about, we really want this to be helpful to you guys, and to really help you understand how sustainability can support and protect your business. And we are lucky to have two experts joining us. So I'm going to pass you over to Nick first. So Nick is a fellow B leader, and he can give you some background to his expertise. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Hi everybody, it's lovely to see you, and yeah, thanks again for joining us and for asking me to come along as well, which has been really interesting for me. So in terms of my background, I've worked for I think over 15 years, predominantly in large scale predominantly financial service businesses, building, transforming, creating brands, evolving brands, something that I've enjoyed a lot. I've got a lot of interesting experience from doing that. What I've then found throughout my career, and as I've got a bit older, is I've started to probably look at purpose. How do we use business as a force for good? I passionately believe that there is a way of doing that, so we can marry up those different ways of measuring businesses in a very effective, very efficient way. So that is something that I've become very much more interested in, and now I have trained to become a B leader, and that's how I met Sarah. So as Sarah says, we'll be talking more and more about B Corps, I think, but there are many other ways of being sustainable and ethical in the way that your businesses operate. But hopefully over time of this afternoon, you'll get something interesting from me and from the rest of the team.
Thank you, Nick. Natasha, so Natasha and I work together at Profit Impact. Do you want to introduce yourself, Natasha?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Like Sarah said, I work with Sarah at Profit Impact, also a fellow accountant for at least 20 years, again, working in operational finance. I've also specialized in governance and risk, and today I'll be looking at the risk side and sustainability together. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, I won't ask him to introduce himself, but Jimmy is our marketing executive at Profit Impact. He's joined us as a Kickstarter. He's doing an amazing job, and he is going to keep us in time and help us manage the chat. So Jimmy, you can give a little wave if you like, but thanks for joining us, Jimmy, to help us. So I'll be popping into the chat with my LinkedIn, so please do connect with me if you'd like to. We'd really love this session to be as interactive as people want to be. I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable, perhaps, but the more interactive we can get, the better. So I thought a good thing to do to start was if you could just pop into the chat your name and which sector you work in. It will help us understand how many sectors we've got covered on the call. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen now. Nearly forgot to do that. That was interesting. Right, okay. Can everybody see my screen okay? Yeah, okay. So sustainability is here, and it is quite interesting what Claire said about, her doing a degree 20 years ago. And I have huge admiration for people that have been working in the space for what is decades, and they've been talking about this. And finally it's here, and we're moving into it. And really how organisations respond to this, I believe, will drive the extent to which they succeed. how they build their brand value and manage their risks. So today we're going to start with me giving a short overview of sustainability, just so people that maybe aren't sure what it is, you get hopefully a better idea. And then we've got 3 breakout rooms, and then we're going to allocate you to one of the breakout rooms. So there will be smaller groups, and we can make it a little bit more discussive, if that's the right word to use. But if you've got any questions in the meantime, we're very informal, so please pop them in the chat, or I think there's a feature on Zoom where you can put your hand up and just do shout. There's also going to be a big section at the end. There's plenty of time. We've set loads of time aside for conversation if you want to do that. Okay, so do ask. So the first slide that I've got, actually, I'd like to know if anybody would be comfortable sharing their view of what they believe sustainability is. Again, you can either speak up or pop it in the chat. What I would say is don't worry about your answer, because there's quite a few different answers to this, but it would just be interesting to gauge if there's anybody out there. Anyone? Shall I put you out of your misery? So effectively, in a nutshell, this is my interpretation of sustainability. It's about making decisions which consider the long-term impact on all your stakeholders. And we'll go into that a little bit more, but fundamentally, that's what it's all about. It's taking a long-term view, and it's taken a long-term view across the whole piece, rather than, I guess, more traditional short-term financial gain is how businesses have historically measured their performance. So that's what sustainability is. So, oops. So the world is changing, and there is a recognition that the current system is no longer fit for purpose. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that shortly. A B Corp really believes that utilising the power of business, we can make the changes that we need to make to the world in a positive way. And we obviously have the governments, we have society, we have all different groups that can make change, but fundamentally, I believe that the commercial business can drive the best change, and there's a lot of benefit from doing that. So that's kind of the cultural shift that's happened, and in its very simplest form, the difference between this century and last century is that we're considering value really in a much broader way. So rather than a measure of success being what we are contributing to our shareholders through dividends or exit payouts, as an example, we're actually looking at the impact we're having on suppliers, employees, the environment, our customers, and our shareholders. Okay, so we're not saying they don't count, but what we're saying is we need to understand the overall value. And I have a fundamental belief that this is the right way to go for business. And, in essence, it's why I'm here, why I established Profit Impact, because I believe that we do need to move to this new way of working, because we need to protect the future for our children and our children's children. However, the benefit that would add on to individuals today will put the businesses that do this in a stronger financial position. So that's kind of the little bit of, I don't know whether irony is the right word to say here, but by not putting finance at the front of our decisions, eventually it will give us the best value, the best financial value. And that's my belief. So, and the reason I say that is that, your customers, your investors, your employees, they are all people. and they can see what's happening in the world. And when I say that, I mean, you know, challenges around the environment, perhaps diversity, whether that's gender or race, obviously the big wealth divide that we have, I think, and on the whole, people don't like it. They don't like what they're seeing and they want change. And it's these people, if they see your brand and your business doing their bit for this, then you will get their support. And it really is as simple as that. Yeah, so I think that's all I wanted to say on that bit. But I've just got, would like to just get a little bit of interaction on this point. And all you need to do is to pop a number in the chat. So the first one, so in terms of what's not working, I've just picked up 3 statistics here. So the first one, how many people on Earth in 2018 had the same net worth as the bottom 3.8 billion? If people could hazard a guess. I can't see the chat, Jimmy, so if you get any numbers, let me know.
Right, so we've got a 24, we've got a 2%, 10, 1%.
Anyone else?
Another 1%, a 5.
Okay. Oh, let me.
None.
26. 26 people have got the same net worth as the bottom 3.8 billion. That was in 2018. I must update that statistic because it definitely will have got worse by now. Okay, so the next one is a percentage answer. What's the percentage decrease of wildlife population since 1970?
Oh, we've got a 50%, we've got a 90%, 25%, 70%, 12%, 20, 40, 35, 30,
wow.
50. I'm putting on my best voiceover voice at this point. 50,
very
75.
good. Very good, Jimmy. Well, that's really broad. That's really broad, and I think it's really interesting. I mean, it is actually 60%. So I think there was a couple
of close numbers.
Yeah, a couple of close numbers, but that's obviously quite high. And then the in tons, without wanting to give the game away, in millions of tons, how many millions of tons of plastic enter the ocean every year?
We've got an 800
million.
Yeah, I'm guessing 800 million. 30 million.
Oh. Someone see my slide? That was very close, actually.
20. Oh, there we go.
Just under 13 million tons. Okay, so I've just shown us they're obviously very, very high level. And you know, you may well be thinking to yourself, Sarah, this is really interesting, but you know, what's this got to do with me? I can't change this within my business. And I think where we are today is a classic representation of many individual actions across the world that have brought us to this place. And there will be no one individual or no one business that can solve these problems. But we do have to start, and you know, we have to start somewhere. And really it is those brave business leaders that are leading the way, being advocates here. It's how we can reverse these changes. So the people that move first will be the people that will bring the businesses with them, and also will create the ripple effect and the advocacy. It's pretty much like anything. You know, I don't know whether people can remember the Greta Thunberg picture of her on her first day sat outside her school with a placard. And then a year later, there was hundreds of thousands of people sat around her over in New York. So that's what that's all about. And I just wanted to put in that as context, really. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have 3 breakout rooms. I believe Tanya is allocating people to breakout rooms. If there's a topic that you really would prefer to go in, then do shout now, and we can, or even if you're in the room and you think, actually I want to learn about business risks, brand value, or B Corp, then do shout. But we thought logistically it would be easier to assign everybody, and then anyone that wants to change, we can change you. So should we go through the three takeaways? Maybe Natasha, do you want to go first and how it went and what your takeaways
Sure,
were?
yeah, I think it went really well. We had a couple of questions, discussing, the questions were around just the number of frameworks there were. So obviously I was just chatting about our chat this morning, as part of the Zotero testing, that we obviously had so many frameworks. So that was quite interesting. And also just about, maybe you have a feel for this more, Sarah, about, the galvanization of businesses and, the changes happening, kind of understanding how many businesses are changing. And I think it is increasing, especially, with COP26 and COP25.
Yeah, I think it's definitely well on the way to being embedded with the bigger businesses. I think the SMEs, there's a huge amount of noise online about B Corp, and it is growing really fast in the UK. But when you mathematically you do the numbers, it's actually only 1% of SMEs. So I think with established businesses, it's a lot slower. I think there's pockets being done, perhaps. So there's pockets being done around environmental impact, perhaps, or diversity, but not the more holistic thing. So I think it's coming, and this is why I really believe for the SME community that people that get onto this are going to have competitive advantage, because it's up here. It's when I say up here, the corporates and the public sector and the NHS, they are well on the road. They are well on the road to doing it, and they are looking for their suppliers to be doing it because it helps them, helps their impact.
Great. Okay. And just in terms of the takeaways, it was about revisiting risk management strategies. So people having a real think about how they manage their risk. The other areas, especially in areas like public relations and HR, because those are often overlooked, and especially formulating, talent risk management strategy, getting the best talent will obviously put your business ahead. And the last one is keeping an eye on upcoming changes in regulation, because those tend to sneak up on you and don't know how it impacts. So with, with mentioning the Better Business Act, that was one of the things that's potentially on the horizon.
Yeah, great.
Great. Oh, and I also included the World Economic Forum Global Risk Report. I said I was going to include it in the chat, but got carried away with questions. So I've included it now in the chat for everyone.
Oh, great. So everyone can download that now. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you. Nick?
Thanks,
How was
Sarah.
your session?
It was very good. I think we decided we were the best room, so apologies to everybody else. So that's my first takeaway. But no, I think the main sort of things for me. No, I'm joking. The main things for me were around
excellent branding of your room there, Nick.
Yeah, of course, always. I think the main thing really that came through in what I was talking about was around the idea of integrity and clarity of kind of purpose. So in theory, setting yourself a very clear sort of view on why your business exists, and then building off of that things like culture, then your communication strategy off of those things. That's very much the most powerful way of doing this. So obviously it's not authentic and not credible if you start to just look at how you build a marketing campaign off of one key foundation. So in theory, it's very much about how do you create that feeling of purpose in the way that you operate and behave as a business. I think then the main thing there is then building that strategy off the back of that and setting meaningful KPIs. So back to your point, Sarah, think about what are those measures of triple bottom line or whatever it might be, to say actually looking at marketing effectiveness or business effectiveness, how are you measuring that you are moving in the right direction? So that kind of pulls together these ideas that with risk and with sort of business organization as well. But again, back to this core thing of consumers our consciousness is changing towards wanting to buy products of this kind of nature or services that are more ethical and sustainable in their sort of core being, but people need to make sure that it's rational and emotionally effective. So brand promise versus brand experience is very key there as well. And then continuously test and learn. So people, we need to keep measuring the way that we're performing, making sure that we set those metrics and grow from there. Then I think the final one really is just around confidence and consistency. So, no business is perfect. Everyone's on a journey, all businesses are on this kind of move towards this sort of space. But if you are authentic, if you are credible, and you build relationships with consumers, your brand value will grow, your brand equity will grow, but it has to be done in a way that consumers want to be part of that journey with you. So if you're doing it in a way that's inauthentic and you're just doing this to make more profit, you're just doing this because it's what everyone else is doing, that won't work. And that is how you could ultimately damage your brand quite considerably. So find out what your purpose is and then build your business strategy off of that and put in all of the measures and metrics on top. And then that is where I believe that brand value and equity will grow very effectively.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. That was great. I do wish I'd been on both of your sessions. It's really interesting actually, because we did run out of time unfortunately on my session, but mainly because I was talking a lot about the competitive advantage, and it linked in to your comment, Nick, about the brand, and the business values. You have to go into this with the right mindset, because it won't work if you really don't believe in it and you're just doing it because you think, oh my goodness, seems to be a lot going on here, I could really benefit from this. It will expose itself. There's obviously quite a lot of examples of companies that have struggled because of that. So I think our takeaways were, and I'm talking for myself here because no one else got a chance to say anything, so sorry. But I think I believe that the three takeaways are: one is a competitive advantage. It is absolutely there for the businesses that move, and the businesses that move first. So if you leave it too long, you're going to struggle to get that competitive advantage, and then what you won't be getting the competitive advantage, and you'll leave it so long, or where you'll be in a situations where you're just trying to protect your business from kind of eroding that value, if that makes sense. So it's kind of almost damage limitation if you leave it too long, if that does make sense. So that's one takeaway. I think the other thing to take away is a little bit linked to brand values, but it's around the mission lock. And so for people that weren't on my session, so B Corp, one of the ways it sets itself apart from other organisations, is certification organisations, is that you absolutely have to do two things. One is you have to have a mission lock, which means you have to change your articles of association with Companies House. And within that, you have to state that you'll consider your social and environmental impact alongside your financial impact. So you actually have to legally state it. So that's definitely something to consider. It's not quite as scary as you might think, that actually. You're not putting it ahead. I mean, fundamentally, you have to be financially sustainable, because if you don't have that, you haven't got a business. And that, to me, is what you've got to be sure of. And I have heard from people working within the startup community, where the younger generation, they are so passionate about social and environmental that they're putting that above all else. And they actually need our support to say, hey, hang on, you've got to make sure that you can sustain financially. So that's a really key takeaway. And then the other one, I guess, is a little bit, I think, again, what Nick said. It's the fact that you are on a journey. Nobody expects you to get everything right at the beginning, and there is no business that does. you know, there's not, I mean, profit impact, we've got goals, and, you know, there's a couple we just can't achieve this year, even though we tried our best, but we just can't get there. But we know what the goals are, we talk about them, and we just work towards it. So my point is that this is a journey, and for established businesses, it's going to be a journey. It's going to be harder. In some ways, it's going to be brilliant, because I think it will really help, like, bring people in, new thinking and people into your business. But with the realities, the realities that you guys have got to cope with in terms of, you know, getting the cash in, managing the business, it's just harder. But it doesn't mean it's not achievable. And what you can do, and this is where kind of we can come in and help with our background and experiences, we can help you cherry pick the things that will give you the maximum impact at the beginning, and then you start to think, all right, okay, we're making some progress here. That's good. Okay, so in the next quarter, or in you know, the next 18 months, we can do X. So I guess that's my really long-winded way of saying, don't be overwhelmed by it. It's eminently achievable if it's something you want to do.
So I'll hop in for a second, because Alan brought up a very good point of being concerned that private equity companies have zero interest in the principles of the B Corp, as their whole model is based on distorting the rewards of the stakeholder. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I can chime in. I'm not sure if Alan caught the risk part of it, but there really is, you know, fewer and fewer places to hide. If it's not going to be from, you know, there's going to be regulation demanding people report on this coming out imminently. And as I've mentioned, you know, the Better Business Act is supported by the IoD and getting a lot of support on, you know, in Parliament. So it will soon be a requirement that, you know, businesses will have to report on how they balance, you know, people, planet and profit, as well as the fact, you know, the customers want it. You know, you're not going to get the top talent. So it's becoming less and less, you know, like they have a choice to not take this seriously. I hope that helps. I mean, it may take them a bit longer than everybody else, but there'll be fewer and fewer places for them to kind of, you know, hide, and it'll just make them uncompetitive.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Natasha. And it was one of my slides that I didn't get to. I had a little bit of a note on that. So Alan, there is the sustainable investment market is huge. And I'll try and be a bit more scientific with that. There's £22.8 trillion floating around, ready to be invested in sustainable businesses. And Triodos, which is the only UK B Corp bank, they're based in Bristol, they did a big research piece last week, and 22% of investors are looking to invest in ethical businesses. So I would agree with you that right now there are, in the private equity world, there are more people that take the short-term view, but equally there is a growing number of people that take the long-term view, and that's the way the market's moving. So we're in this, I guess we're in this transition, and the PE houses are on a journey as well. But yeah, I mean, I've been at the receiving end of working in a business where all the investors wanted was the short-term profit maximization, and it makes for a very, very unhappy business. So let's hope that they're not around for too much longer. But yeah, does that answer your question, Alan? Or your comment?
Alan, you are muted. There we go.
Hi. First of all, thank you very much for the session. It's very good and very encouraging. And nothing I say should be taken as pouring cold water over it. We all need to do something, and every little helps. I quite agree with that. However, this is going to need political action at the highest level, because currently private equities gets their funds from investment companies that handle our essentially pension schemes and the flood of that money. And those people are investing where they get the best shorter term return. And unless you fix that, if you fix that, then private equity is robbed of the fuel that drives their engine. Right now, if you're running a private equity business, all you're interested in doing is taking money from one pocket and putting it into another. You're not interested in running the business.
No.
Business is secondary.
I completely agree. And as I say, I've witnessed it, and it just doesn't work. It just fundamentally doesn't work.
Well, you say that, but it works. It works for the private equity companies and those executives that they incent.
Well, it doesn't actually. In my mind, it doesn't work for them, because they are making decisions that are not based on they're making decisions based on sand. That's been my experience so far. So when they go in to invest in a business, they don't start off from the right starting point. So you're already kind of on the back foot.
No,
so
I mean, I agree with that in 100%. But if you take the care industry in this country, for example, very attractive to private equity because it has long-term guaranteed income streams. So they buy in when the interest rates are low, and when the interest rates go up, we are left from a government point of view picking up the pieces. So the private equity people rode away into the sunset with their money.
Yeah, I mean, I
didn't benefit society at all.
No, and interesting. It's a really good example you raised there, because I read an article last night about the care homes, and they're actually, I think they've got something like a 60% vacancy rate because people cannot afford to work in a care home. So I agree with you that there are many PE houses out there that don't behave this way, but equally it is changing, and this transition period is going to be painful. I absolutely agree with you that the government need to start pulling the levers. They're being very slow. I don't want to make this to a political webinar, but there will be a reason it's slow, and that's because they're having to battle against basically capitalism and some areas of society will lose out from this, and generally it will be the areas of society that can afford to lose out. But I'm getting a bit political now, but that's what I think.
Sarah, can I just it's a really good conversation. I agree with many of the points that have been made. I think the part for me is around the fact that there is a change in consumer kind of consciousness and expectation with some of these things. So again, depending on how far in you are within the kind of sustainability or ethical kind of investment or that kind of world, there are some quite amazing systems-based discussions that are happening, because again, this kind of idea that actually the current system in which we find ourselves may not be beneficial to all of humanity in an equal perspective. So actually consumers are going to start expecting the way that they invest things like their pension pots, or there's lots of change in those kinds of areas. And in theory, we're hoping, obviously, it's almost like top down, bottom up, kind of where does it meet in the middle?
Yeah.
The more people that I think have a individual view of actually saying I can be effective in the way that I can be influential in either writing to MPs or changing the way that I talk to different people or the way that I invest things, ultimately I believe that brands may have to act even if they were choosing not to. So this is I think we're going to a really interesting time in sort of the world in which we live, and that's going to be a really interesting way of seeing things, because I agree completely that currently there are people that will just want to invest, short-term investment, flip it, get the money out, not really too fast. But my personal belief and hope is that really amazing people that are caring about these things will be able to create a new system that makes the old system obsolete, I hope. So that's my pure blind optimism. Hopefully will get us there, and some very good thinking as well.
Yeah, Thank you. Thank you for that. I enjoyed that debate, Alan. I have to say that's one of the best debates I've had on a webinar. Thank you. Are there any, Jimmy, on the chat, are there any other questions? Or?
Well, I mean, Richard brings up a good point of it being a potential problem in the mainstream retail and food area, where Morrison's and others are subjected to PE bids currently, and the area is very sensitive to sustainability.
It is, and again, it's going to be interesting to see what PE houses are investing. Now, the thing that the government are doing, I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be coming out, but the larger companies have got to start measuring and reporting on their sustainability metrics, so they're actually legally obliged to. And Morrison's will fall into that. So actually those larger retailers, it will be an interesting transition for if they have investors that have got short-term profit maximization with this requirement to, you know, to report on their ESG measures. And this is why you will hear the phrases about greenwashing and social washing, because we're still in a place where we don't have a very prescriptive methodology in terms of the reporting and the measures, which is what I think Natasha was kind of discussing in her section, and that does create problems for the larger businesses. I think for the smaller businesses, on the glass half full point, is that it's much more manageable, the reporting and the measures actually for you guys, so you don't have that real complexity that they have. Depending on your sector, if you're in a very complex sector, it can be tricky, but it should be easier for you. I think it is a really interesting debate, this one, and I think that where we are is really what Nick was saying. We're on a transition, and it's going to get a whole lot more bumpy, I think, a whole lot more bumpy as we go through it. And once the regulation hits, and it is going to land, I mean, I kind of semi-joke. I mean, I was given the GDPR job in my last paid role, and I managed a team across like 70 countries, and it was like, oh my goodness, this is quite a big job. And GDPR, when that hit, it kind of, the whole country seemed to grind to a bit of a halt. Sustainability is kind of GDPR times 10 in my mind. So again, for businesses that move first and start to get their heads around it, wrap their head around what it's all about and how it can help them and how they can help the I guess the movement of sustainability, they will be the ones that are in a stronger position. Any others, Jimmy?
I'm kind of scrolling up at the moment. I see that Richard Smith, another Richard, 50 Richards. At present, there are a lot of organizations promoting sustainability, and depending on your industry, there are also industry standards, which some customers want suppliers to follow. What is required is an ISO standard in this area that covers all aspects.
Which I think ISO 14001 is kind of, again, really great thing to use and look at as well. So again, it's not my area of expertise, but I've definitely worked with many people that have been. I don't know if Natasha has more knowledge of it, but again, I know it's a really powerful tool and framework.
Yeah, there's definitely plenty frameworks to choose from, and you know, currently there's a harmonization process happening where lots of these frameworks or these entities are joining together to, you know, share frameworks. So I think it probably would be better to kind of understand the SDGs as a starting point. Go through GRI, I would think, is probably, you know, some of the more mainstream ones, so that you know there's transferability depending on where you want to go. But with the ISO, I think that's quite, you know, I would consider that's quite targeted to a manufacturing business, for instance. or a bigger organization, a small SME or startup wouldn't need to go to that depth. So it really is dependent on the individual organization and what's the best suited framework for them is.
Yeah, thank you for that. And one of the things that we do offer, we do something called a snapshot, and we spend time with the business owner, and it's a couple of hours, and we'll just basically bottom out where you are, where you want to go, understand about your sector, your financial position, and then we can come up with recommendations. And this is not me giving a hard sell, but it is a real practical offering just to wrap your head around it. So we will be emailing out with some information on risk and other stuff, I'm sure. And so if you do want to get in contact and anybody would like some kind of a steer, we can help you. This is one of the problems, is there's very rarely like a one size fits all, because it depends on your sector, whether you're manufacturing, the extent of your environmental impact of your business, if you've got PE backing, it takes a little bit of thinking through, and yeah, so it's a bit difficult to give a straight answer.
Claire brought up a good question, which I love the phrasing. Is there a danger that we might be entering a VHS versus Betamax situation here regarding frameworks?
I was going to say you're showing your age there, Claire, but I thought I know what you mean. Yes, possibly. I think the sooner it gets nailed down, the better. I believe that, Natasha referenced GRI. The GRI is heavily linked. It's called it's jargon, the Global Reporting Initiative, which is linked to B Corp. And I think that my belief is that fundamentally will rise to the top. But again, because of you're a smaller and medium-sized business, the principles tend to be the same. It will be, what's your gender pay gap? What's your net zero strategy? It's the same, it's pretty much the same kinds of things. So if you went off on a framework and then it changed, it's not a big, in my mind, I don't think it's a big transition. Clearly it depends on your sector and the size of your business. What do you think, Natasha?
Yeah, I think companies like manufacturing, anything with manufacturing and product, life cycles that need to be properly apportioned out, will have a little bit more of a challenge on this. But following something like, investigating the ISO brand, that's very popular. But they are, like I said, there is harmonization in this area. I wouldn't say so much VHS versus Betamax are kind of like trumping one another, but there will be maybe 2 or 3 big organizations in the end, or partner organizations that all kind of follow the same or read from the same hymn book, so they're kind of interchangeable. I know that IFRS are looking to set up their own standards, so that should be another lot of fun that we're looking into. But they are working with SASB and others to kind of formulate this from an accountancy point of view. So yeah, like Sarah, I do agree with Sarah that if you have certain work already done on gender and all that stuff, it could be really easy to transfer that into other documents or non-disclosures that you'll need for reporting.
Yeah,
I agree. I was just going to add to that actually as well, because something that I kind of covered in my session is around this idea that you can get either caught up in frameworks or semantics or kind of, what is it that we're measuring? But fundamentally, for me, this always comes back to integrity. So I personally believe if you're a good business operating with integrity, you know whether you are or not. The framework you then get measured by is an outcome. So sustainability or ethical practices should be an outcome of you operating in a way that is integrous to the way that you are operating, rather than actually the fact that the framework is trying to catch you out. And I think you could then say, actually, if I'm just going to build my business around achieving not getting in trouble, as an example, if I legally have to hit a framework, then you won't hit the measures in the way that the business is acting in the way that is either sustainable from a ethical perspective or from a brand perspective or from a purpose perspective. So I think really, and I think consumers will be able to work those things out. So if you have to quickly jump to another framework, then I think that's cool, because if you're a good business, you're a good business. And I think that's probably the way that I would kind of see it myself.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, team. That's good. Any more questions or observations?
Doesn't seem to be at the moment, unless anybody wants to chime in, but yeah.
Is there anything that we've not covered that you thought we'd cover? Or I think Tanya is going to be sending out a survey, just for some feedback. So actually, it would be great if you can give some feedback on that. You know, if we do more, then we can help. I mean, from my perspective, it has actually been really interactive, and hopefully people have found it helpful. But
yeah, thanks Sarah and Natasha and Dan. Nick, sorry, not Dan. I don't know where Dan came from, and Jimmy. I think this has been a really great session, really informative, and yeah, I figured I had nothing to lose with showing my age, because I already said that I went to university 20 years ago. So
I think you're still younger than me, Claire.
but yeah, I think there's been some really great stuff to come out of this session, some really interesting discussion. We will be sending round a survey afterwards, but whilst you're all still here, it would be really great if you have any ideas of things that you would like to talk about on the sustainability agenda, or indeed any topic, then please just put it in the chat now. We're always looking for ideas for events, so that'd be really useful. Coming back to this event, I think, Sarah, you actually picked up on my key takeaways from your session. So although you said that they were just yours, they were mine as well.
Oh, great.
A few things that I've highlighted that come out from today is actually all startups should be going for B Corp and adopting this, because it's a solid platform to build on, and you're starting from scratch. So why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about the competitive edge, and Sarah, you touched on actually you can get the edge in bidding for tenders with big corporations and government contracts, which I think is, you know, really important. The idea about the mission lock as well, getting that into your articles of association. And I think this sort of conversation about actually it's a journey, and continuous testing and learning, and being authentic. And I think that links in then to what we were talking about at the end around frameworks, and actually just being true to your values and being authentic and following that, it all then sort of falls into place. So yeah, and Natasha, from your group, with the revisiting of risk management strategies and that sort of key thing around HR and PR, I think, you know, it's really important and really key. So yeah, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for attending today. We do actually have this slot open for another 20 minutes if people want to hang around and have a bit more of a conversation, or if there are any other questions you'd like to ask. But otherwise, I wish you all a very lovely evening, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. I'm just going to answer Richard's question. Richard, thank you. Well, it was, I think, I can't quite, I don't know whether I can't open it. Here we go. I've worked out how to do that. Sorry, show my age again. So some businesses view sustainability as a cost to bear. However, sustainability can reduce costs in no time. I mean, fundamentally, I just really do believe that. I think there is, depending on where you are as a business, will have the impact in terms of what you spend on it. But I don't, again, it's all in the planning and the journey. And, you know, you can plan. You can plan what you're going to do. You can think about what the potential upsides are going to be, and manage your risk, and do it that way. I mean, I I can't sit here and promise that it will increase your profit by 10%, but likewise I can't say, well, it's going to increase your operational cost by 10%, because it's going to depend on your particular business. I do know that within the environment, most businesses will save money on the environmental side. On the employee side, it really just depends where you are in terms of what you're doing and how you're looking after them. I do fundamentally believe, though, that you will save costs by having happier employees, because of the cost of recruiting and onboarding. It's so expensive. It's so expensive to get people into your team. So if you can invest a little bit in that, then it would. I mean, I've always thought it's a bit of a false economy to cut back on staff costs, because you're going to fundamentally save in the long run. That was always an interesting battle I had with my CEO in my last year, but I do believe that. So there's upside to be gained, certainly over the long term, and there will be some cost savings. There will be some cost to incur to get it embedded, but it's nowhere near like what people think. I mean, of course, if you're going to call up, you know, PwC or BCG Consulting and ask them to do it, then yes, then it's going to cost you a lot. But fundamentally, I really don't think, when I see what people might spend on you know, a full SEO review, or money that they would throw into their pay-per-click paid ads, to me, it's just it just makes so much sense to put that money into getting your strategy right. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, of course Sarah was going to say that. That's what her business is made of. But that's what I really believe. You know, I think in the long run, if I was setting on my business from scratch, that's what I would do with my money. I
totally agree, Sarah. I think. Oh, sorry, Natasha. You.
Oh, no, I just put mine in the chat. I said also opportunities to be gained, you know, from you know, ticking those boxes, or, you know, being, you know, obviously linking to what you were saying earlier, people want to do business with good businesses, and people want to work for good businesses, you know, yeah. Going on to the brand side of things as well.
I definitely agree. No, I totally agree. And I think just following the back of what you were saying, Sarah, I think the way that I view this, again, and having the sort of experience that I've had of sort of, you know, running quite large scale marketing campaigns, is the way that the systems and the sort of synergy of getting these things right can be so effective. So it was that systems thinking kind of approach of saying, what's the outcome that we want to get to? More often than not, actually the inefficiencies that are in your business, you could start to look at, and you can then start to see the way that you can harness them in a more effective way. Mm-hmm. And exactly what you said, Sarah, of the number of businesses that I've helped, that it's not even a sustainability basis. Often it's around this idea that they're in this kind of almost arms race, but I need to keep spending more and more money to keep myself more and more visible with short-term campaigns. I'm driving more pay-per-click, I'm driving more SEO, but fundamentally they're doing that without a clear business strategy or a marketing strategy. So it becomes this kind of just very efficient, and this is my point about actually some of the machine learning AI stuff that we can now use. But if you don't set the parameters effectively, and we don't build it off of the correct way of having your business clear as to why it exists and what the DNA is of that, it will never return the investment or marketing investment that you would want it to. So I would always say, step one, get clear on why your business exists, get that purpose clear, and then build out from there, which will go into business strategy, culture, marketing strategy, and then comms and sort of metrics and tactics after that. Don't get it the wrong way around, because otherwise you'll end up wasting lots of money trying to be more efficient rather than effective. So yeah.
Thank you. I agree with everything you've just said.
And I agree, Richard. Yeah, definitely agree.
Were there any more things that we didn't respond to? Oh, access funding. Sam, is Sam still on the call? So there is definitely funding out there. If it's for sustainability funding, you want to find impact investors, so that they are out there. We can help. If you just want an informal kind of no obligation chat, give us a call. It's on our list actually to produce some information around that so that we can start to share that. Triodos Bank actually they do provide funding specifically for sustainable kind of projects, but also some of the more mainstream banks now. So again, this is another upside which I've just not mentioned. But if you probably should have mentioned this, sorry. If you have evidence sustainability in your business and you go for a loan, say with Lloyd's, you're likely to get a discounted rate. So that the bigger banks are going for this as well. So the more mainstream banks. So yeah, there's definitely opportunity. I don't know if Sam is still on the call, but maybe Sam, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, I'll get in contact.
Unfortunately, I think Sam did leave. So
oh, did she? Oh, don't worry.
I think perhaps Sarah, if you said that maybe there was some information that you'd share with us in a couple of weeks' time, and maybe if you could just include something on that, we can make sure that we email it out to people.
Yeah, I will do that in a couple of weeks. I'm going away.
When you're back from holiday.
Yeah, back from my deserted island in Scotland. Yes, so we'll definitely do that. That was a good question, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have a look at that podcast as well that someone mentioned. Super, good. Anything else? Does anybody want to have a chat about anything sustainability related?
I mean, we natted about the news for a very long while during our meeting this morning.
Oh my goodness!
It's very
You
easy
really
to just get lost in a tangent of news stories.
Yeah. Actually, I'll tell the story, and if you've got to go off and have your dinner or whatever, you don't need to stop. I understand.
Marie did just put her hand up.
Oh, Marie. Oh, hi, Marie.
Oh, hello. Hi. Sorry, I'm cooking dinner, so I put the camera off.
Don't worry. Don't worry. I like the multitasking.
We all want to see what you're cooking.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It's okay.
I got a little bit. No, it just to go back to what Nate was saying about tactic. He said you have to focus on your tactic and strategy. I just want you to reiterate what he said about just the last bit where you said I didn't really get to understand it.
Okay, sure. Hi, Marie. Basically, what I think from my kind of experience and my kind of belief is that the tactics are kind of the final stage of actually communicating what your business DNA or what your marketing strategy is. So in theory, once you know your audience very well, once you know why you're targeting that audience, and then how you're positioning your business around kind of the either DNA of your business or purpose of your business, you can then start to use things like pay-per-click or SEO. They're the kind of the marketing mix to me is kind of the final part of that sort of journey of trying to communicate to people. So what you don't want to do is start trying to refine or improve your sort of tactical marketing if you aren't clear on the strategic side of why you are spending the money that you are spending or who you're trying to target with that money.
Yeah, so great. I just wanted that clarity because I'm writing a roadmap, and what I've done, I've put my strategies. I'm focusing first on my strategies.
Yeah. Perfect.
And then I bring the my tactical approach at the top of my map. So what you just say, just put like it's common that for the eyes that I was going the right way. So I just needed clarity because you did mention it. So I just want to know if I was going to the right way, focus on my strategies, and then embed the tactics in order to deliver.
Absolutely, yeah. I think the kind of the way that I would go about it is be clear on the purpose and the kind of DNA of your business, then go into the business strategy should fall out the back of that, and then marketing strategy kind of wraps around that, and then you get out into the final part, which is then your comms kind of strategy or go-to-market strategy, which is then sort of based on the sort of value proposition and stuff. But definitely, or yeah, as you say, perfect, as you kind of described it there, of being clear on the strategic ambition that you have, and then use the tools that you then have tactically to deliver against that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that clarity. Thank you.
Oh, no problems at all. Thank you.
Hope your food hasn't burnt, Marie. I will just tell a quick story because I think it's very, very relevant, and hopefully people have got over Sunday night now. But obviously Sunday was not great for us all with the football. For anyone that's thinking, what's Sarah talking about? It was a difficult, sad evening for a lot of people. But then most of us woke up the next day and saw everything that was happening online. And for those of you that didn't see, there was a huge amount of racial abuse for the three amazing chaps that unfortunately they missed a penalty. And some of the abuse was absolutely vile, including one from an employee of Savills estate agent. Now, obviously you can't blame Savills for this, but what they did, they automatically jumped on what was said and put out a positioning statement. And this really links back to Natasha's thing about PR risk. They put out a position statement about how they have diversity ingrained in their business, and they have a zero tolerance, and they said all the right things. And then somebody said, oh, what, like this? And then they linked into their board, and it was a board of bizarrely over 30 people, all with the same pretty much white middle-aged men, which obviously I have nothing against white middle-aged men at all, but it was an obvious disconnect between saying, you know, we're passionate about diversity and then delivering what they delivered. And I think that the point that I really wanted to make, apart from it was just really quite an awful event, was that it's so easy to get tripped up now. The world is so complex, and you have to be really careful what you do and you say, and that's where the authenticity comes in. You know, you will get exposed, and that's again linked to the bit about the competitive advantage of business values. You know, you've got to really believe in this. You know, it doesn't mean to say you have to change the makeup of your board, and it, you know, it's not radical. You don't have to be really radical, but you have to be authentic, and you have to acknowledge where you are on your journey. And interesting, I keep looking at Savills' Twitter account, and they've not responded yet, so I don't know how they're going to come back to it.
I mean, I can also present a story as well with Lush in particular. Last year, I believe they had a bit of a minor controversy because they were found to be like, basically they were found to be promoting or giving money to an anti-trans charity, but because they've already had this brand ethic kind of value and everything that they've obviously been putting in the legwork for the past, I think, decade at this point, it was a controversy that kind of disappeared within a week or two, because they owned up to it, they apologized for it, of course, but it was one of those things where, because they've already instilled that brand value and been seen as a very positive kind of charity, both sustainably and ethically and stuff like that, it was easier for the consumers to like forgive them as well, and just be like, oh, okay, well, we understand you made a mistake, and it just passed on through that. And it was quite interesting to see how they interacted with that kind of PR situation.
Yeah, it's a really good example. Thank you.
Sarah's got a hand up. Hello.
All these stories are prompting reactions. So the one in Scotland at the moment, in terms of B Corps, is Brewdog.
Yes.
Yeah, and obviously they've been rising on the B Corp story, but now their staff has spoken up and said it's not like, you know, the directors are saying. And what, as I've looked into that, it seems, isn't, you'll know better, Sarah, than me, isn't it the issue that staff aren't involved in the evaluation process for B Corp, so they haven't had a voice in that process, and that seems to be where the model is shortfalling.
I think so. This is just my view on B Corp is that at the moment you can not self-certify, but you can complete the BIA yourself and then apply yourself, and then you go through a verification stage, which is done by they're called verification analysts, but it's all done by kind of phone calls and virtual meetings. There is no formal audit. There's no formal audit. There's no formal audit at all in sustainability. So whether you are a B Corp or whatever you choose to do. And that's going to be another change that is going to come. I don't know how long it's going to take them to get there, but until sustainability metrics are audited, it's going to be quite difficult. But yeah, the BrewDog thing was, I mean, I personally felt incredibly flat for about 3 days after hearing that. But the reality is, it doesn't matter whether you're B Corp or you're Lush or whoever you are, if your numbers are not being checked and you're not a business that lives by the right values, you can get away with it. It's the same on the finance thing. So I'm trying to think of an example. Natasha, you might have to jump in and bail me out here if you can remember any, but there's always examples of companies where their financial numbers have been hidden. And it's like, well, why didn't PwC pick up on that? Why didn't Ernst & Young pick up on that? Even with an audit, things are hidden, and it's all about what happens at the top. And so it's back to the human element. So yeah, it's a tricky one to know where it went wrong, Sarah. I think
there's something to learn from something like Investors and People, because that's where that assessment goes right through the staff team, and the interviewers are quite good at picking out and making sure that the real issues are surfaced.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that does sound good. I think there needs to be audited, whatever you want to call it. I mean, which is, I guess, kind of similar to what you're saying about Investors in People. You have to actually speak to the people on the ground. Yeah, and that's when you really get the truth of what's happening in business. But they must have found it quite galling, those employees, when BrewDog got their B Corp certification, which may have led to the letter, actually. So it might, because they've only just got their B Corp. I think it was this year. So it's quite interesting that the letter came out reasonably quickly after their certification.
I think B Corp are looking at it, and I think they will be doing internal assessments and sort of checks as well. So then they will come back with their kind of view on it as well. So I suppose watch this space really as to what B Corp could kind of come back with really in terms of how they learn and grow themselves as well. Because again, it's very much part of this idea of everyone wanting to be part of a community that is driving really good positive change. So it's then how do we kind of make the model even more effective, which I think is what B Corp are looking at, and I think we'll come back with hopefully soon. Yeah,
I agree. It's that validation, isn't it? How can you be sure?
I can't think of any examples at the moment, but yeah, it is precisely that. I mean, international financial reporting standards have been around for decades, and people still get into trouble with that, and things are missed. I think there's going to be a lot of that on the sustainability frameworks and evaluation area, and I think and like Nick was saying, people will eventually get found out when they're not doing the right thing. So in contrast to Lush, kind of immediately put their hands up, but they'd built up a bit of brand credibility before that to be able to sustain that. Whereas BrewDog, I think were quite tooting their own horn about their their brand image and how they portray themselves. So let's see what happens on that front. But yeah, you'll eventually get found out, and then it'll all come crashing down, and your value won't be worth anything.
No.
Well, on that positive note,
let's all go and have a beer.
Yeah, but not a BrewDog one.
No, not BrewDog.
Toast ale. There we go. They're the main one I've been looking at lately.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll probably draw it to a close there. So thank you once again to our speakers. It's been brilliant, and I think just a sign of how engaged everybody was that so many people have stayed on right until the end.
No, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for that. It's been honestly, it's been probably the best webinar I've been on in terms of interactivity and challenge, and yeah, it's been really good. So thank you to everyone that kind of joined in, and yeah, it's been a good one. I enjoyed it.
So I'm just going to plug the conference again. Do sign up for the IoD conference on the 2nd and 3rd of September. It's amazingly good value, just £40. So, and it's the global conference, and it's being organised by the Scotland team, and the focus is all on sustainability. I'm a member of the Sustainability Task Force, and we're busy trying to advise the organisers on speakers.
Oh, well, give me a shout. We'll turn up if you.
Well, it's there on the website. Just go to the events page, and you can register.
Right, super. We'll have a look. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that, Sarah. You reminded me, and you put it in the chat, and I said thank you, and then I still didn't plug it verbally. So yeah, bad for me, but thank you, Sarah.
Brilliant.
Great. Right.
Thank you so much then.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much. Bye.